welcome to our podcast. And don't forget to push that button that says subscribe. You know, I am convinced that there are times in the life of every believer when, for the life of you, you don't understand what God is doing in your life. I think that you would agree that there are times in the life of every believer when you just can't figure God out. You prayed like you were supposed to pray, but the answer that God gave is not clear. You prayed like you were supposed to pray, but the answer that God gave is not what you expected. You prayed like you were supposed to pray, but the answer that God gave seems illogical and irrational. I asked God to open a door for me, and God closed it. I asked God to make a way for me, and God blocked the entrance. I asked God to set me free from something, and God seemingly put me on lockdown. There will come a time in the life of every believer when you just can't figure God out, when you will have to face the ambiguities of God because you don't understand what God is saying, and you don't understand why God is leading you the way that God is leading you. Oh, I know that Psalms 23 and verse 2 says, He leadeth me beside still waters. Then it says in verse 3 of that psalm, He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness. But these paths that God is leading me are paths that I would not have chosen for myself. It would seem that if God is leading me, it would only be beside still waters. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt that the waters where God is leading me, these waters are turbulent, these waters are tumultuous, and it would seem, some of you might think, that if God is leading me, then it would only be in paths of righteousness. But sometimes in life, the paths that we're on seem to be filled with pitfalls and stumbling blocks and dangerous places. You might ask the question, what do you do when you just don't understand what God is doing? What do you do when you just don't understand the way that God is taking you? Well, the Lord sent me here to let you know that there will come a time in the life of every believer when there will be some gray areas, some blurred lines, some difficult places. And those are times when you hear what God is saying, but you don't agree with it. You see where God is leading you, but you think that there is a better way. This is what the word of the Lord says that I think will help you today. It says in the book of Exodus, it opens with the children of Israel living in Egypt in captivity, and they have been in bondage, in captivity for more than 400 years. And the book of Exodus ends with the children of Israel escaping out of Egypt, led by a pillar of cloud by day and a cloud of fire by night to protect them as they traveled. Now, once they finally came out of bondage and slavery in Egypt, the journey to Mount Sinai was a short journey, only about a day's journey. So the first part of the journey out of Egypt should have been an easy one. All they had to do was go from point A to point Z, then straight to Mount Sinai. But it says in Exodus chapter 13 and verse 17, the Lord did not lead the people along the easiest route. The Lord did not lead the people along the shortest, most direct route. But God had a reason for doing so. The reason why is because there were warlike people along that route. And the Lord said, perhaps when the people see war, they will be afraid. They might change their mind. They might decide to go back to Egypt and return to slavery. Somebody needs to understand that there are times when God won't give you what you ask for. There are times when God just won't give you what you've been praying for, and God won't take you the easy route, because God is omniscient, God is all-knowing, and sometimes there's danger up ahead, and what might look like a blessing on the surface and what might look like a blessing to you might turn out to be the greatest curse in your life. So sometimes God will lead you in a totally different direction to avoid disaster. So somebody needs to know, and I want to encourage your heart through this podcast today, that God knows more than you know. God knows better for you. It is your responsibility to trust and have faith in whatever God says and whatever God does. So turn your will over to the will of the Lord in all that you think and all that you do and all that you say. I know that this podcast blessed you today. Don't forget to push that button that says subscribe.